Welcome to the Reality Revolution. I am so excited. I have RJ Spina back. As you guys know, I have held off from doing interviews for a little bit, but when RJ asked me if we could interview and he sent me his new book, I had to accept. And after reading his book, I was so excited because it's right down the line with what we talk about on a regular basis. RJ is a massive expert. I recommend you go and watch my other two episodes where we have talked about his first book, Ascend the Frequencies, and that's actually his website, Ascend the Frequencies. And as we all know the story, RJ has devoted his adult life to teaching people how to raise their frequency, improve the quality of their life, heal themselves, and experience the blissful state of truly being free. He had spent the better part of his life exploring profound metaphysical truths through his own higher consciousness exploration, but it was waking up from emergency life-saving surgery, still permanently paralyzed from chest down paralysis, that awakened him to the highest truth he'd ever encountered. He could heal himself and walk again. It was something that he instantaneously knew, and he knew how he would do it. We talked about that in our first two interviews, and his first book is really amazing, but his second book, I'm just as excited for, and that's Change the Mind. RJ talks about changing the subconscious mind and energy in particular, and a variety of different things. In particular, Change Your Mind focuses on how to reprogram the subconscious mind and the role that energy plays in this process of changing your mind. And so I'm really excited having a chance to have just read this, to go over what RJ is teaching here, and we can go over some of the deep concepts that he's talking about. So welcome back. How's it going, RJ?
Thank you for having me, Brian. It's going really well. Super busy, but in a good way. And I really appreciate you making the time for us to talk.
Well, it's always so exciting, and I always learn something new when I get a chance to talk with you. And so let's first of all begin. What was your inspiration for the new book, Changing Your Mind? As a sort of sequel to your last book, you wanted to go a little bit further and really explore how to reprogram the subconscious mind and the role of energy within that. What was your inspiration in that?
Well, Brian, I'm my own guinea pig, as you know. So I work on myself, right? So with the first book, with the chest down paralysis and manifesting my health. And manifesting and creating are really the same thing. We use those words interchangeably. So I understand the process itself, literally like the back of my hand, in terms of how manifestation actually works. And when I decided that the topic for the next book has to do with human potential. So for me, everything is about bringing out the superhuman. And if people are unaware, 95% of reality creation comes from our subconscious mind, which is essentially the whole ball of wax. Our thinking mind only accounts for 5%. So if we want to truly create the life that we know that we're possible of, we're going to have to go into the uncharted territory, which is the subconscious mind. And so I wanted to write the treasure map in terms of how to get to the subconscious mind, remove in a repeatable, robust process, just like the Ascend the Frequencies healing technique. I want to develop a system for humanity that they could use, that anyone could use, to begin to understand the subconscious patterned egoic mind, because that is actually the reality creator. So as I was doing this with myself, looking at my own sort of subconscious from a very detached and higher consciousness perspective, I started to see the things that were still left in there. And as I said, I'm my own guinea pig. So I wanted to actually remove these things for myself. And then as I remove them from myself, I just developed a system in terms of what I did for myself. So I wanted to capture this system. And as you know, the book has got 3 essential parts. But the first part has to do with deprogramming the subconscious mind, because for all of us to ascend the frequencies, and there it is right behind me, for all of us to ascend the frequencies and start to be able to live the way that we all know that we're capable of, this is what must take place, Brian. The deprogramming of the subconscious mind, because it is the reality creator, must be addressed. And most of us know law of attraction, things like that, mantras, affirmations, and they certainly have their place. But the reason why they're not foolproof is because of what's already embedded within the subconscious pattern egoic mind. So until we see these things, bring it to the conscious mind, and there's a system to do it. It's very easy, as you read. As soon as you bring that to the conscious mind, this program of scarcity, lack, limitation, separation, that these things are outside of you, you see it consciously. Once you see it consciously, you can delete that program. Now, once that program is deleted, there's more of the mighty I am, or what we really are, which is abundance itself. That becomes the frequency that we emanate, this wholeness, this completeness. And that can only be manifest in terms of a 3D or a material world until the limitations of the subconscious mind are removed. So that's what this book is about. It's for humanity to have a robust, repeatable process to remove the limitations that have kept us from being able to live the way that we all know that we can.
One of my favorite authors is Joseph Murphy, who wrote extensively about the subconscious mind in The Power of Your Subconscious Mind. But it seems like with New Thought authors and more modern authors, there's a little bit of a discrepancy in their explanation of what the subconscious mind actually is. There's levels to the subconscious mind, a personal subconscious that's unique to your own imprint, and then there's a sort of larger universal mind. So how are you defining the subconscious mind before we start reprogramming?
That's a great question. Okay, so let's start in terms of what it is that I perceive through a higher consciousness perspective, not through my physical eyes or my intellect, but through the true mind's eye and the higher mind itself. So the subconscious, I think the best way to look at it, Brian, is to see it as the best recording device that's ever been created. So it literally records every single moment, every single second of your entire existence, which includes past lives, present lives, and future lives, which are all happening concurrently. But it literally records everything. Now, how it does this has to do with our body of energy. And I think this is what's been missing, along with a couple other things that's been missing before in terms of the subconscious understanding it and how to deprogram it. Our body of energy and our more subtle bodies of energy, how the subconscious works are the indentations and the identifications that are made within our subtle body. So the image that I use in the book, and that's what becomes the programs. So the image I use in the book is, think of a bedspread.
Which I love. I love this explanation. It really helped to me. Keep going. Yeah.
Perfect. So yeah, this is, I think once we have these kind of images and tangibility, it makes a world of difference for everybody. So if we think of the bed, hospital corners, nice and tight, right? And then if we take a marble, right, and just place the marble on the bedspread. Now, if we looked closely, right, where the marble touches the bedspread, we would see just the slightest indentation, right, where the marble is leaving its impact upon the bedspread. Okay. Now imagine our subtle body of energy. And you can think of this relates to the 7 chakras, but it goes beyond that. It goes beyond that. But think of the 7 chakras as one bedspread. So now think each one of these different frequential bandwidths, our subtle body of energy, is a bedspread. So there's 7, even though there's more. I don't want to go too far with it. Every single thing that is within that frequential range is a marble. Every sound we hear, every image that we ever see, every experience that we ever have, every voice that we ever hear, everything that we ever touch, even the things that go well beyond physical sensory perception, are actually leaving marbles all over our subtle body of energy, these indentations. Those indentations becomes your programmed subconscious mind. They leave an indent. And then the energy works through those things and around those things. So every time there's an indentation, it affects our behavior. It affects our thoughts, our emotions, our actions, and our behaviors. And it goes even higher than that. It affects our desires and our intentions. Every one of these little marbles. So those are the indentations from subtle energies that's beyond physical sensory perception, including the ones that are within physical sensory perception. Now, the ones that we identify with, the things that we have perceived, heard, or experienced that we identify ourselves with, that becomes part of the egoic mind. So there's synergy between the subconscious patterned mind from all these different marbles within all these different frequential bandwidths. The ones that we identify ourselves with becomes the subconscious patterned egoic mind. Now, once we have these things embedded, and everyone is filled with them, absolutely filled with them. If we could actually look at a human being, we would just see dots, indentations all over the place. Now, everything that we operate from has to do with those. None of us are free. None of us are able to operate with true freedom. And true freedom is not doing whatever you want, whenever you want. That's not freedom. Real freedom is escaping the tyranny of the finite mind and limiting body consciousness. That is freedom. So when we start to address the subconscious pattern mind, the marbles that are within there, when we go through the system, we remove. Now we own our own mind. Now there's no such thing as a limitation. Now our desires and our intentions are authentic to us. They're not programmed in through society. We're not brainwashed. We're not indoctrinated. Most of us are doing, not even most of us, all of us, are programmed to behave and act and think and desire the exact same things. Why is that? Because it's been planted. Those are the marbles that are within there. So until we remove them, we can never transcend the subconscious patterned egoic mind. We will be left with limitations that we don't see, that we keep recycling the experiences and never actually having fulfillment or cessation or knowingness of the true I am. What we end up having is just the endless appetite for the things that have been programmed into our subconscious mind.
So you made an important comment. You mentioned that part of our subconscious is all of our past lives and our past incarnations. So obviously that's a daunting amount of information underlying just this life. So how can we possibly overcome the programming of countless other lives other than this one? I mean, I'm kind of aware of what sort of programming I've been through in this life, but how do we come to grips with the infinite programming that we've experienced in all these past lives?
Yeah, that's a great question. All right, so that's actually what becomes the biological computer or the genetic entity. So all the thought patterns, all the emotional patterns, all the societal conditionings, all the traumatic events that have happened throughout history through your genetic, your hereditary, becomes this is it. It gets embedded within our DNA. Okay, so that's what this thing really is. This is our ancestors. Okay, now how do we overcome that? Is the residing consciousness or sentience or the I am that's within the vehicle. Once it actually takes command of the incarnation, we rewrite all the genetic history. It only takes one person to liberate themselves to heal all of their ancestors. So it's nothing additional. We've been conditioned to believe that we're a slave to genetics, and that way we have to, healing then becomes outside of ourself, and all, we can go on and on about that, right? It's complete black magic. It's complete nonsense. It's materialism. And it's actually Luciferian, that whole thing. Maybe that's a whole nother discussion we can get into.
Right.
Reducing consciousness to everything that's outside of yourself, and therefore solidifying it and crystallizing it. Okay. So the soul that is occupying the vehicle, when it fully takes command by deprogramming itself, it overrides genetics. Genetics are actually nowhere near as impactful as people think they are. Not even close. I've been diagnosed with a whole bunch of stuff that's impossible to overcome, and I absolutely have, and I'm sure I'm not the only one. And I absolutely have, and it has to do with understanding this. Once you take command, once the I am takes command of the vehicle, you're now in charge, not the genetics. If you identify deeply with the physical form, if you see yourself as this, then you will become a slave to genetics. You'll become a slave to the body. You'll also become a slave to what the body produces, thoughts, emotions, bodily sensations. And then you'll identify with the experiences that the body has. Now you actually have no shot of deprogramming your subconscious mind or liberating yourself or healing. So we have ultimate potential and ultimate control. We're abdicating it through identification with the body. And then we say, because that's all we ever hear, oh, it's genetics, there's nothing you can do about it. That is absolutely nonsense.
I'd really like to get your feel for the power of language on our programming in subconscious. Something I'm super fascinated by. And when, the things that were working for me in deprogramming my subconscious was affirmations and hypnosis and deep sleep programming and those kind of things. When I became aware as a hypnotist, the power of key phrases, words, modalities, and different programs like that, I became aware of my own programming, and that we're constantly being programmed all the time by words around us. And that plays a role in the energy. So how does that fit into your model of the subconscious and our ways of reprogramming it?
Yeah, it's absolutely part of it. It goes beyond words, but that's absolutely part of it. Everything that we see, we feel, we hear, even energies that are outside of physical sensory perception become marbles that land within the subtle body. Now, language is certainly part of it. Most of us communicate through language. Once we get into about the fifth frequency, or what people call the fifth dimension, most of the communication will be telepathic, and there really won't be language. So, but for now, we are certainly spelled by words, without a doubt. So the whole origination of the meaning of words, Brian, comes from the effect of the sound that it had upon the ether. So as we emanate, in the beginning was the word, and the word was sound. Okay. So sound is what creates the formulation of matter. Look at the somatics, right? All the different, you put a certain frequency and a certain sound, and all of a sudden shape takes place. So it plays a huge role. We are constantly spelling ourselves. The voice inside your head, the story that you tell yourself, is you literally spelling yourself. You are putting yourself in a state, an unawakened state. So it plays a massive, it's part of it. It's not the whole thing. And it's not the whole thing from my perspective, it's not the whole thing by a long shot, but it's absolutely essential. And the key to the real transformation that these things don't prior, we don't deprogram first. We have to deprogram first and then address mantras, affirmations, and commands, because if we still have this going on, right? The societal conditioning, all the stuff from past lives, we have all this going on, right? Think of it this way, Brian. That is a very specific frequency that we're emanating, right? Whatever we got going on in the subconscious mind, whatever it is, pick something, it doesn't really matter, right? But that is like a specific frequency that we are emanating. You think of it as like a song, right? Now, the universe can only match that. The universe mirrors everything. Everything here is designed for self-mastery. The multiverse is a multi-frequential, multi-dimensional hall of mirrors designed for self-mastery, which simply mirrors every single emanation that we have. And I've been everywhere, and that's exactly how it works. Now, so if we have this emanating, Brian, we have our subconscious mind, lack, fear, all these different programs, right, going on. That's what we emanate. The universe matches it. Now, if we don't address that, we don't deprogram that, and we tack on affirmations, commands, mantras. Now what we're doing, it's kind of like emanating two songs at the same time. We got our programming, and 95% of reality creation comes from the programming, and then we're trying to tack on something to that. So now we're emanating two songs at the same time. This is why we get mixed results, because nobody can dance to two songs at the same time. We ask the universe to do it, but it doesn't work. So the key is to address those programs, delete them, then add on what is truly representative of your highest desire and what it is that you're possible. So to me, that is the way to operate.
So you have the book broken into three parts: understanding the subconscious, becoming the real you, and then attending to your energy. So before we get into the becoming the real you, the thing I love about this book is it's not just something that you read. You have applicable exercises that you can do that are easy to do, and they're very effective. So that anybody that's saying, oh, I don't want to just read another book, that's not what this book is. Is a software that you can install that will start amazing results in deprogramming you and helping you to understand your energy. And you give credible signs and ways of knowing when you're dissolving your subconscious programming. A lot of people will come to me, how do I know I've reprogrammed it? And so tell me a little more, what are the signs of dissolving my subconscious programming?
Yeah, it's a great question. And yeah, for me as RJ, everything is about, there must be a system. It's one thing for me to talk about these things, but if there isn't actionable and understandable steps to take, if it isn't prescriptive, then to me it's worthless, because we've moved into the age of Aquarius. This is the age of experiential knowingness. So it must be tangible for all of us. And all my work will reflect that it will be tangible for you through an actual robust, repeatable systems, just like the Ascended Frequencies healing technique. We now have a technique to deprogram the subconscious mind, and all my future works will have a system that goes with it so you can do it yourself. Okay. Now that I just rambled on and on, can you do me a favor? Can you ask me your question? Ask me a question.
Yeah. What are the signs that it's working? That it's the subconscious programming is dissolving?
Okay, thank you. Okay, I got carried away, right? Okay.
No.
So, what else is new? All right. So, because our desires and our intentions have been programmed into us, okay, in the beginning, and there's, as you know, there's lists and lists and lists of all these different things that are universal for everyone that does it. Universal for me too. That's, like I said, I'm my own guinea pig. Now, in the beginning, all the things that were driving our behavior, okay, they're now being brought into light and then deleted when we realize that's not really an authentic desire. That doesn't really come from your higher mind and your higher self. So as we start to recognize these things and then delete them like a useless program from a computer that no longer serves us, we often find ourselves unmotivated. We don't find ourselves tethered to anything in the very beginning. The friends that we had the same mindset with, we start to feel a disconnection. The people that we were lockstep in terms of our thought process and things like that, all of a sudden we start to feel a disconnection. So and this is actually what is quote unquote meant to be. You're changing your song. You're changing your frequency. Now and it's totally fine. They're probably still stuck on their same song and their same frequency. So now you're no longer dancing to the same tune. So you start to feel alone. We talk about this as people ascend and they wake up, right? That it's also the end of inauthentic relationships. And when you work highly on yourself, like these books lay out, any inauthentic relationship is going to fall away because you're no longer in resonance with one another. So what does start to happen is the things that were driving your behavior, and that's how you deprogram your subconscious mind, as you know. You have to understand what's the core motivation for why I'm doing this. And most of us never examine this. Now you'll have a process to do it. So in the beginning, you're going to feel like you don't know what to do with yourself. You're going to feel a bit lost. You're going to feel a bit alone. You're going to feel lonely. You're going to feel unmotivated. That's because you're now untethering yourself from everything that you were stuck to, that you were programmed to believe in, and then act at the behest of your programming. So in the beginning, having a book that shows you all these different signs, all these different things that start to happen. But the main one is you kind of don't know what to do with yourself in the very beginning, because everything that was driving your behavior, the programming, has been brought to your conscious mind and you've deleted it because it's not authentic to you. So we have to give ourselves permission to adjust to this, to give ourselves sort of our own time and our own way to start to find our true self. And then, as you know, in the book, there's all these different things that we can do to actually start to express and to know this true self. But in the beginning, it can be lonely. It can be, you can feel unmotivated. You can feel disconnected. You can feel that you don't have anything in common with your family, your friends, your coworkers. Hey, welcome to the club. Okay. That's actually how it works, but that is actually how you discover the real you.
It's sort of a desert phase, like we see with all of the great masters that have been written about. They go through the desert phase. And so that's a sign, some people will come to me and they're struggling with that. And it's a great sign that you're on the right path. A lot of times at that dissolving period, people will lose a job, they'll lose their home, in often cases it's dramatic, the major changes in their life, and they have, I made a terrible mistake. There's that doubt that creeps in when you have big changes in your life, right?
New beginnings are often disguised as messy endings, right? So for the awakening of the self, the mighty I am, for it to awaken And for us to then realize the next data point on our life plan, oftentimes those old data points have to be taken away. We can't retreat to them. Let me put it that way. We can't stop our own progression by being stuck within what it is that we were identified with and programmed to behave and like. So that's absolutely right. This often happens. The only way the new data point can present itself is if you have released yourself from the confines of the identification with the other one through your subconscious programmed egoic mind. So these things have to go. Sometimes just like you said, sometimes relationships end. Sometimes there's a new relationship, we're just waiting on the horizon. Jobs, sometimes you move, you meet new people. This is actually what is supposed to happen, right? If everything stays the same, there's no growth, there's no evolution. We're not expanding our consciousness and letting the I am unfurl itself. There's no gnosis. So that's exactly what happens. And if all of us can start to reside in the knowingness, think of a caterpillar. I mean, does it not completely and utterly destroy itself in order to become what it really is? Is that not a destructive, messy, vulnerable process that caterpillar goes through to be born into what it really is? So if we can keep that as an analogy, it'll make this transition easier.
So as we like the caterpillar are turning into the butterfly is really the real you. And so you mentioned as the second part of the book is becoming the real you. When we're changing our mind, it's not just some little thing we want. We're not trying to get like $50,000 or win the lottery. It's an absolute transformation in ourself and who we are. How do we do that? First of all, how do we express the real you all the time? Sometimes we get hints and little, we have an idea of it, but how do we do it on a regular basis?
That's what a great question. Okay. One of the things that I talk about in the book has to do with authenticity. Okay. When you're authentically you, what will happen is you're not concerned with other people's approval. You're not concerned with other people's reaction, and you're not really looking for acceptance. What you're really interested in is being truthful with yourself. You're no longer trying to fit in, and you don't need to fit in because you didn't come here to stay. So it's being true to yourself, true to your highest passions, true to your highest desires. If we all could imagine for a moment, if we only said and took action on what we tangibly know to be true, that is how you become the real you, and you never deviate from that. Now, once you taste that, anything artificial will never suffice. You can't go backwards. You won't go backwards. The butterfly doesn't try to jump back into that cocoon and try to become a caterpillar again. So it has to do with being tangible in terms of your own authenticity, your highest excitement, your highest desire, being authentic. And once you realize that that's the only thing that matters, not approval, not acceptance, not attention, not gratification, you won't step backwards. But if the egoic mind gets in the way, we will go back to the old patterns. The key is to only say and do what you tangibly know to be true for you. And that is the way to be and express the real you.
It's an absolute focus on truth as you understand it and are aware of it. And when you that's just a cliche, but when you really think about that, you start to analyze and apply it in your life. You do start to see the times that you're not following your truth. It's an amazing realization. What are the universal characteristics of this real you that I can helps me to understand myself? Are there characteristics that I can refer to as you talk about in the book?
Absolutely. There's a long list in there. So I mean, some of them, and these are universal, and that's how it's good, because the I am, the sentience, what we used to call the soul, but it's not really accurate. What we really are is our level of love and wisdom, whose subsets are our talents and abilities. That's the I am. That's the God. That's what we all are, is that. And that is given energy to think, to emote, to animate the body, to create experiences. But the painter is not the painting.
Mhm.
So what we need to focus on are these universal qualities. And these are things like compassion, forgiveness, power, wisdom, love, understanding, courage, clarity, connectivity, communion, calmness. Those are some of the universal characteristics that make up the I am. And it's the same for you, me, your neighbor, your dentist, et cetera, et cetera.
Mhm.
It is absolutely universal. Now, when we become compassionate, forgiving, courageous, wise, loving, first with ourselves, then we'll be that way with everybody else. And anything that isn't truthful, as we said, it's kind of like a slogan or a slang, not when it's tangible. Not when it's tangible. And when we taste the true self, the I am, anything inauthentic has lost its allure. And so the going back to these habits, or going back to hanging out in a way that didn't serve your highest good or anyone else's highest good, it literally becomes unpalatable to you, because all of these things lose their allure. These universal qualities are tangible. They're not mental. They're tangible.
Mhm.
And the key is to reside within these things and stay true to these things 24/7 in everything that we do, in every interaction that we have, and especially in everything that we create.
Subtle question regarding this. As I start to realize my true self, a lot of times in spiritual writings and teachings, we're talking about attracting. But the actual real self is radiating. It's more of a radiational. It's not about getting something, it's about giving. It's more of a radiating. I find the false self that I had is the attracting, and that the real self is a radiational. What is your opinion on that?
Yeah, I mean, that's much more on the money. What we can do, Brian, we can take it a step further, or maybe many steps further. Okay, so let's think about breathing, right? Inhale, exhale, right? Okay. If we start to realize that those are two sides to the same coin, there is no inhale without exhale, there is no exhale without inhale, that in actuality, it's just one thing.
Right.
Okay, so now when we start to use that about giving and receiving, they're not separate. Each one needs one another. It's actually one thing. Now, what we're starting to tap into, Brian, is flow. Now we're tapping into flow. And abundance is the momentum or uninterrupted flow state that comes from the mighty I am, which is abundance itself. So if we cease to compartmentalize, inhale and the exhale, no.
Right.
It's one thing. Now giving and receiving is not separate. This is when things really start to change.
I love that. So my favorite part of the book is your discussion of energy. And a lot of times I think energy is not properly discussed and talked about. And I'd like to go deep on this and talk about how we should view our energy. There is some contradictory versions out there in the spiritual ether about the way our energy body works and our energy. For instance, Carlos Castaneda would argue that it's a fixed amount. We always have the fixed amount. We don't lose or gain any energy. It's a fixed amount. And then others say, you can deplete your energy, you can gain and add more energy. How should I view my energy body? Is it a fixed amount and I'm just reclaiming the energy that I've lost, or can I continually attract more and more energy? Or is it? Do you understand what I'm trying to get at? There's this idea that there's a limit to the amount of energy, and if I expend it, it's not coming back. And sometimes I don't know what the actual truth is, and you help me to understand that.
Absolutely, yeah. Okay. Energy cannot be created or destroyed. Okay, so that's another word of saying it's infinite. Okay, doesn't sound finite to me at all. Doesn't sound finite to me at all. Okay, now we can even go back to healing, me unparalyzing myself, and right. Okay, so I commanded more and more energy, high frequency, what I call intelligent energy, into my body through, I mean, there was many other things I did, but opening up my crown chakra and commanding energy into me in order to put my essentially completely destroyed body back together. There's an infinite amount of energy. There's no such thing as finite. That is the limitations of body consciousness and therefore the intellect. No disrespect to anybody, but those that can truly see would never say that, because it's endless. Tesla tapped into it. The ascended frequencies healing technique is essentially how to use what Tesla tapped into for your own healing. It's really lockstep, vibration, frequency, and energy. Okay, so Brian, there's nothing finite. Now, what we have to start to understand is that through identification, right, with a belief, a concept, a person, it doesn't matter what it is, through identification with something, that identification is your energy. Okay, Spider-Man shooting his spider web, right? He's now stuck to the building or whatever, right? Okay, so your energy is the spider web. So whatever you identify yourself with is an energy depletor. Now, this is the ego mind identity. This is what the subconscious pattern egoic mind. This is what it does. It's constantly depleting itself because it's constantly identifying itself with a concept, an ideology, an experience, a person, right? A belief, right? That's your energy. Every single identification that you have weakens you energetically. It does not strengthen you. It does the absolute. If Spider-Man shot out 500 spider webs into all these different, where's he going? He can't go anywhere. He's got no freedom. He's got no power. Okay, it's a silly analogy, but anyway,
right.
But when we start to understand how this works, the amount of energy, it's infinite. Energy cannot be created or destroyed. But as soon as you make an attachment or an identification, Brian, that's what depletes it. That's what depletes it. And upon, we'll use the word self-realization or enlightenment or master or whatever word you want to use, when all of these things actually just fall away, and they just fall away, you now realize that it's endless, it's infinite. There's no restrictions. There's no restrictions to the energy that you can command. There's no restrictions to anything in terms of your own creation in any way, shape, or form. So the key to understand about that is where we make this identification or misidentification. And that is the energy depleter. And by doing the exercises in the book, what you're doing is you're recognizing where you're attached or where you've identified where the indentation is within your body. You're able to see it consciously, and then you delete it. You become more and more and more powerful. And those are one of the universal qualities of what we really are, power.
So you have a really handy checklist of questions you can ask, sort of analyze the energy that you're doing. And it made me think, I really want to get your opinion on this because I'm fascinated with it. And something, my realization of it has added to my energy. So there's a Russian author that wrote a book called Reality Transurfing. And he proposes that there are these things called pendulums, which are energetic structures, not the pendulum that we swing, but energetic structures that form when multiple people think about something. It happens all the time. When, you see it on a vast scale with political parties. Everybody's addressing their thought energy towards this thing. And eventually, this energetic structure almost becomes an egregore. Like within the energy field, you'd see these whales flowing around and they're literally just taking energy. So it could be for instance, recently we had the news event about the submarine. Everybody's talking about it. It becomes a pendulum. They're putting their energy on it. And then it starts to take your energy. And so when I started to become aware, when I'm on my phone and I'm into this group, this idea or whatever, and it's just like an energetic vampire taking my energy away. And I reclaimed this energy. For a lot of people, it might be some conspiracy theory or something they're obsessed with. And it just, you can almost see like it's a conscious entity. And the whole intention of this entity is to take my energy. And when I became aware of this, I just, you see like these energetic egregores constantly everywhere. We're swimming in them, taking our energy. So when we reclaim our energy, it's when we put our attention towards anything. Sometimes that the thing that we're putting our attention toward us takes it in a more significant way, and it becomes a loop, which I have these pendulums that it can be as simple as a family. Our family can be a pendulum. What is your opinion on this? Is there ways for us to overcome this? Because we would be dead if we didn't have to deal on some level with pendulums. It's just interacting in the culture and world we're in. But there may be strategies based upon what you're saying where we can deal with these energy vampires that are all around us all the time.
Yeah, well, whoever wrote that book is got a good handle on some of this. And by the way, that's why they call it paying attention.
Right.
Because you got it. There is an energetic debit that is happening, and that's why it's called paying attention. And it has a lot to do with black magic and how this realm is operated. Look Absolutely. Over here, look up. Okay, that's by the way, I completely agree from a higher consciousness perspective. I completely agree with that person. We can take it further. Okay. Anytime it absolutely is an energetic debit, right? That's why we have to become completely mindful about being present. Only put your attention, because your attention is energy. Only put your attention on what you want to grow.
Right.
That's number one. If everyone could just start to work with that, because attention is energy. If you're putting your attention on something, you are feeding it energy, it will grow. And as you do that, you are paying attention to XYZ. That is an energetic debit. You are actually getting weaker and weaker and weaker. Oh, maybe that's the idea about all these distractions. Oh, interesting. Okay, so let's take it one step further. I'd like to take it one step further, Brian. Okay.
Yes.
So the astral realm, okay, and from my perspective, the astral realm, we're in the third frequency. Let me give context. From my direct experience, we're in the third frequency of the first full dimension. All physicality is within the first full dimension. Once you get out of the first full dimension, and there's 12 dimensions, there's no such thing as solidity. Everything is from a human perspective. There's no such thing as solidity. Okay. So we are in the third frequency. Energy exists frequentially, not dimensionally. Dimensions house frequencies. Okay. So the astral realm is the fourth, fifth, sixth, and seventh frequency, what people call dimensions, which is fine. It's not accurate, though. So the fourth, fifth, sixth, and seventh are the astral realms, and those are the frequencies. When everything that exists beneath that, you and I, right, and everybody else, okay, so when we start giving attention to a belief, a concept, a boogeyman, whatever it is, a conspiracy theory, right? Satan, all this kind of stuff, right? Okay. Think about what I just said about attention is energy. Whatever you put your attention on grows. Okay. We are constantly feeding and increasing the astral realm. It keeps expanding and getting thicker and denser and pressing down upon us because we keep feeding it. So how do we combat this? Is by locking ourselves in the present moment. That's the key. Meditation, right? But the self is meditation. The self exists prior to thought, prior to emotion, prior to the body, prior to bodily sensation, prior to incarnation. So the self is meditation. So once we start to marry ourselves to the present moment, all of these things, the pendulums, the astral realm, all these things go back to their natural state. And as those things go back to their natural state, your natural state, which is communion with your higher mind and your higher self, starts to become resonant and starts to become permanent. So the key is to have complete and utter control of your attention. That very well likely may be a subject of a whole nother book that I write in a whole other system in order for us to be able to do this. But it is absolutely correct. Where your attention goes, your energy flows. Only put your attention on what you want to grow. And now that we know that, if we know that the world is messed up and it's got all this kind of stuff, okay, we all know this. Most of us, we all know this. Okay, well, stop then. Stop. You know it's a mess. Put your attention on what you want to grow. That's really the key. Don't put your attention on this thing and that thing and keep increasing the astral realm, which then just starts pushing down on us. And that's actually, I digress for a second. I just want to say this. I went to a city. I won't name the city. I went to a city. It was fun. It was a business trip, right? I went to a city and great food and this and that, right? And as soon as I got there, I felt like I needed to take a shower, right? It's like the astral realm, because it's so densely populated, you know, it's a city, because it's so densely populated, all these beliefs, all these fears, all these things, just adding to the thickness and the density of the astral realm. It was difficult for me to just go from the hotel to the meeting. It's like I was in soup.
I've had the same thing. I've had the same thing. Maybe people get used to it like a bad smell when they live there, they're not aware of it. It's like a bad smell that you kind of just get used to because you smell it all the time. But when you go there, the sense of the fear and the thought structure completely changes the color of the area that you're in. It's amazing.
Yeah, literally, and it was unbelievable. It's like I was taking, well, I might as well admit it. I was taking 3-4 showers a day. It's like I can't get this gook, and it wasn't physical, you know. It wasn't like I was rolling in the mud. It was the density and the thickness of the astral realm. And wherever there's a lot of people, the frequencies are always lower and denser, because for the most part, we're not self-realized. So we're constantly identifying ourselves with all these things, which makes as we just said, it makes it incredibly uncomfortable. And it was unbelievable to be back in a city. And I'm going to do everything I can to try to not have any business meetings in a city.
What do we do when we find ourselves in this? I've had this happen when I've gone to large concerts. I've had it. There's some part of the empath journey in there. As we awaken, we're more empathic. But I've noticed it in movies and in crowded cities that I go to. You can feel the pervading fear thoughts that just is there a technique or way that we can maneuver, because we have to, if we're going to be of service and help others, we have to maneuver in these unusual environments. Is there ways for us to do that other than take 3 showers a day?
Right. It isn't necessarily practical, right? So, okay. Something, what we could call this a psychic shield, if you want to call it that. The image that I often use is, think of a castle, like where maybe Merlin and King Arthur were in a castle, right? Now the castle is surrounded by the water, right? The moat, right? Okay. Right. So to protect the castle, right, they instituted the drawbridge, right? So when the drawbridge is down, anybody can go in and out of the castle, right? But when we bring that drawbridge up, that castle is protected in theory, right? That castle is now protected. You really can't get to it. It takes a tremendous effort now to get to it. Okay. So I want everyone to start thinking of themselves as raising their own drawbridge. And your energy field becomes impenetrable. Now, the key to doing this, or one of the keys to doing this, is through non-identification. So in other words, let's look at it this way. I'll try to get to a faster way to do it. The seer, what is seen, and the act of seeing is one thing. Okay, now that feels different when you do that, right? Okay, so what's happening? That, by the way, that's a fast way for enlightenment, by the way, if you can stay that way. So what's happening? Our physical eyes don't see this, Brian, but the higher mind can literally see this, and we can feel this. Okay, so what's happening is your energies are no longer leaking out, and therefore being affected by the environment, just what we were talking about, right? Now, when we do what I just said, your energetic drawbridge comes up. And now you're unaffected for the most part. You're unaffected by the environment. Now you can walk through anything. It doesn't matter what's going on. It doesn't matter if it's a raging storm or if you're doing battle with astral entities. This is one way that you can actually do this. Now, just imagine your energy coming out like a drawbridge and see it around you, above you, to the side of you, beneath you, and then feel it. The seer, what is seen, and the act of seeing itself is one thing. Now feel your energy around you. And then just maintain that drawbridge. Now nothing can touch you because you're no longer in a state of identification. You realize through the seer, what is seen, and the act of seeing is one thing. You are now whole and complete. Which is the truth. You are now whole and complete. And the only reason why we get affected this way is because we're identifying with what is going on. We take it personally. The subconscious pattern, egoic mind, takes everything personal. Well, timelessness is not personal.
Mm-hmm.
So when we work with timeless teachings, we become invincible. We become nothing can affect us. But that's one way to do it. And it's really, as you know, people that are in general more evolved and empathic have a much harder time around groups of people. And that was just a crazy reminder of what it's like to be in a city with the astral realm just crushing down on us. But if we start to use what I just said, you'll feel much better. And it's a way to maintain energetic hygiene.
Now, knowing, of course, that it's all one energy, at the same time, we have transformers, and this energy is transformed, and there's different flavors of it. And so there's a discussion I had in a recent episode. I'd like to get your feel for it. The Rosicrucians sort of teach ignore the lower energy centers, because you're going to be working those. That's just this frequency, right? I mean, this frequency is all about the solar plexus, the sacral, and the root. And you've done enough work on that. Work on the heart first, then the throat, then the pineal and crown chakras. Then I've had others say you really need to also focus on those lower chakras to keep a balance. And if they're blocked, then you're not getting the proper energy flow. There's like dueling philosophies about this. What is your opinion when we talk about these energy centers, which have been talked about in multiple phases? That clearly there's something. It's not just one teaching, and in multiple places have taught about these energy centers. Should I focus on those lower ones and try to balance them all, or should I continually try to work on the heart up?
It depends. It's a great question. It depends on what kind of experience you want to create for yourself. So Rosicrucianism is beautiful, a deep connection to Rosicrucianism. It's conception and inception. So if we looked at this, the Age of Enlightenment, which led into Rosicrucianism, by focusing on, when we go to the fourth frequency, by the way, when we start reincarnating back into the fourth frequency, not here on the third frequency, those three chakras will be banded together into one chakra, and we'll just be operating on the top four chakras, by the way. Right. It's important to know. Okay. It depends upon what type of experience you want to create for yourself. Now, we cannot be in denial, self-denial, in terms of what's going on with the lower chakras. Okay, that's foolish. Mm-hmm. It's absolutely foolish. But at the same time, if we're looking to transcend, elevate, and expand, we have to then put our focus on the fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh chakras, without a doubt, but not at the denial of what is going on with the third chakra. So we just want to keep the third chakras maintaining its proper functionality. That's how I say it. Just make sure that it's operating properly. And one way to do this, I'll get right to, well, what do I do if they're not operating properly? Okay. Right. So a very simple thing, right? Very, very, very simple, right? You take two fingers, right? I do this for people to open up their heart chakra. You take two fingers, put it on whatever chakra that feels, and I often start with the heart, right? And we'll do it together, Brian. Any two fingers, whatever. Just take two fingers, gently place them in the center of your chest. Don't, push, just place them there. Mm-hmm. Okay. Then just bring your awareness, your recognition to the sensation of touch right there in the center of your chest. Bring all your awareness gently to that. Don't analyze it. Don't judge it. Don't measure it. You're completely and utterly focused gently on that sensation of touch right there. Nothing else exists but that. Now, gently reach out from inside your chest and touch your fingertips. Okay. What you just did, if you did it, what you just did is you extended your heart chakra and you fully opened it. Now, that is the key to health. Mm-hmm. Contrary to anything else that you're going to hear, that is the key to health. The chakra system are the energy transformers and metabolizers. It's not food. It is not. That's an illusion. It is the chakra system is the whole key. So by extending and opening the chakra system, you become energized, and it's self-repair and self-cleaning by an order of magnitude. Do that for any stuck chakra. If you have an issue with your thyroid, I'm just picking something. You have an issue with your thyroid, address just what we just did right here, and do the exact same thing. If you have other issues with other organs, find out the corresponding chakra that goes with that and do exactly what I just said. And watch what starts to happen in terms of your health and your energy level. That's really the key. So to come back to your question, Brian, if we want to lead a more elevated life, not at the denial that we're having a physical experience, that's not what I'm saying. But if we want to lead a more elevated life, the focus does have to be on the top 4 while maintaining proper functionality of the bottom 3 chakras.
Right. And the most problematic for me is the root, because people sometimes are so afraid that they close that up. In my own experience, but generally, if your goal is to awaken, those higher chakras are key. Now, when your third eye is open, you can kind of see energy fields in other people and yourself. And you can see that some people have a very closed in energy field, and some people can have a very expansive one. And if you can see somebody walking through a mall and their energy is literally covering, everybody. Is it better for us to have a larger energy field or to keep it consolidated? Should we practice actively extending our energy field outward, or is that irrelevant and not important?
Oh, that's a very interesting question, Brian. Okay. I always do. I've lost my mind, right? So I do everything the opposite way. So I direct that inward. Mm-hmm. Now, when I direct the focus inwardly, what starts to happen is everything is within your consciousness. Okay. Mm-hmm. God is within your consciousness. There are many rooms in my Father's house, right? The kingdom of heaven lies within.
Right.
Okay. So if we start to work that way, instead of expanding it outward, okay, I tell you what I do. I do the opposite. I bring it inward so far that the higher mind just blossoms. Now the extra sensory perception, clairsentience, clairvoyance, the clairs just start, and there's a lot more than those, by the way, just start to open up. But it's because the focus is inside. So when the focus is inside, that's gnosis. That is knowledge of self. Through knowledge of self, we'll start to realize that the greater reality is within your consciousness. The universe, your universe, is nested within the multiverse. Our mind has a blueprint of the entire multiverse, and we populate it with our experiences by going inward. If we're going outward, from my perspective, that's the wrong direction. So if you go in, what actually happens is this happens. Because you're experiencing more of the I am, the full, complete I am. And as you experience more of that, this starts to happen. If the focus is on sending energy out here, right? I think what happens is we're subject to the interpretation of the pattern subconscious egoic mind, or the intellect, which has nothing to do with gnosis or self-knowledge. So for me, if you go in, Brian, properly, if you go in, the expanded state of awareness will happen automatically. And then the knowingness of what is going on will be in relation to the knowingness of the self. And for me, that's the optimal way to do it.
I believe it's a real thing when people say, I'm sending you light and love. Obviously, some people will think it's a cliche. For me, it's a real thing. Can I send my light? And what is the best way for me to do that?
Oh, I'm just glad you asked that. Yes. I mean, that's what this is all about.
Right?
That's the whole thing, Brian, what you just said. That's the whole thing. Okay. Yes, we send love and light. We are light. We are love, right? Don't get in the way. Don't get in the way. Just share it endlessly, nonstop, right? Give, receive, good. Let it just do this, right? You can never run out of what you actually are. You can never run out of love. You can never run out of wisdom. It's actually what we are. Absolutely. I mean, I won't go there. Of course, we send love and light. And actually, in a lot of ways, being here is to fill this realm, to infuse this realm with our love and light. That's actually the point. That's it. So of course, oh, my dog likes that. She's getting carried away. So that is, it's absolutely real. And if people think that isn't real, they've collapsed their consciousness to the point where they're in self-denial. And the only thing that's left is, if I can't hear it, smell it, taste it, touch it, it doesn't exist. They've dropped themselves into materialism, and right next to materialism is nihilism. I promise you. Now there's no purpose and there's no meaning to anything. It's absolutely not true. The real purpose is what you just said: to send love and light, to infuse this realm with who and what we really are. And a rising tide lifts all ships.
And so there are definitely people that have come back from the fourth frequency with that only purpose, just to bring more light into this frequency. That's at least my perspective. And that's when I meet somebody like you, I can see that your inner intention in coming back is to bring this light. And as you awaken, you meet others, these lighthouses, almost to make sure to protect you from the rocks as you come to the shore, and tell you a place that you can go. And that's just being is the greatest service once you have accessed that light, right?
That's it. That's it. You got it, right? And the only thing we have to do, right, is get out of the way, right? Get what I call personhood. Get personhood out of the way. The ego, mind, identity, and all it's get that out of the way. And then the only thing that is emanating is your love, your wisdom, and your light. And that to me, that's the whole point. I tell you, that's the point why I'm here, is to do that. And my specific, talents and abilities as it relates to that. That's the whole reason why I'm here, to infuse this realm with that love and light. It's exactly what this realm needs at this moment, are these understandings, are these teachings, this specific vibration. It's like adding just the right spice to a stew that you're making. And you just add that little bit of spice. Oh, perfect. Now we can eat. So it's a silly analogy, but
it's so true. It really is.
Yeah.
So the book is Change Your Mind, Deprogram Your Subconscious Mind, Rewire the Brain, and Balance Your Energy. It's coming out on August 8th. So I'm going to release this episode on August 8th. So that means right now, go to Amazon. I'll have a link in the description, and you can be at the forefront of this amazing teaching. And if you have an intention to bring light to the world and have a desire to reprogram your subconscious mind, this is a great place to start. RJ is proved his teachings by his own life in the way that his life has come about. This is not just talk. He has given himself, as you said, a guinea pig. So when you read these words, you can apply them, and it's helpful. I know there are people that are lost and struggling on how they want to reprogram their subconscious. They're aware that their energy is low, that they don't really know their real self. And so this is a really great place to start. I can't recommend it enough. RJ, thank you so much. Can't wait to talk to you again soon. You got the third book on the way, right? You're thinking about it. You're working on it.
The third, Brian, first off, thank you very much, Brian. Thank you for the kind words. I look forward to talking. Whenever we're going to talk again, it'll be great.
You got it.
I did hand in. The third book has already been handed in. So Change Your Mind comes out August 8th. And believe it or not, the third book, we're still debating the title. The third book comes out August 8th of 2024.
Fantastic. How exciting is that? So thank you so much. Keep up the amazing work. ascendthefrequencies.com to get more information. And welcome to the Reality Revolution.